A major federal court decision has fundamentally escalated the constitutional standoff over presidential power, with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling to permit the immediate deployment of federalized National Guard troops to Portland, Oregon. This pivotal decision, which overrides the objections of state officials and greenlights military involvement in domestic civil law enforcement, comes as the Trump regime simultaneously renews explicit threats to deploy forces, citing the Insurrection Act against San Francisco, California. This legal and political battle over the expansive use of executive authority marks a new phase in the debate over the militarization of U.S. cities that do not need support.
Well, the three appeals court judges voted 2-1 to overturn the temporary restraining order from District Judge Karen Immergut. That order preventing the president from deploying National Guard troops to Portland. 200 Oregon National Guard members are standing by at Camp Rylea on the Oregon coast. Another 200 members of the California National Guard are at Camp Withicum and Clackamas. The majority opinion by the Ninth Circuit judges Ryan Nelson and Bridget Beatty, both Trump appointees, states that we conclude that it is likely the president lawfully exercised his statutory authority, which authorizes the federalization of the National Guard when the president is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Now, during oral arguments, lawyers for the administration said they would now immediately seek a stay on Judge Immergut's second temporary restraining order, which bars the California troops from being deployed to Oregon.
In a key legal development, the divided three-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit today sided with the administration, granting permission for the deployment of National Guard troops to Portland. This ruling lifted a prior injunction that had prevented the president from federalizing Oregon's National Guard to protect federal property and personnel. The majority, comprised of judges Ryan Nelson and Bridget Beatty, concluded that the president likely acted within his statutory authority, specifically referencing the law which authorizes federalization of the Guard when the executive is unable to execute U.S. laws using only regular forces. This decision allows the Trump regime to retain control over the state's reservists as the high-stakes litigation proceeds. The ruling was met with immediate backlash from Oregon officials who had initiated the lawsuit to block the deployment. Governor Tina Kotek stated clearly that there was no insurrection or threat to public safety that necessitates military intervention in Portland.
I still urge the Trump administration to send all the National Guard members home, both the Oregon National Guard and the California National Guard. I continue to believe, and we have both a local federal judge as well as a dissenting member of the Ninth Circuit saying that the situation does not warrant those deployments.
Similarly, Attorney General Dan Rayfield condemned the deployment as unlawful, arguing that the city was not experiencing a foreign invasion or anarchy, but localized demonstrations near a federal facility. Their arguments were initially validated by a district court judge who had blocked the initial order, asserting that the administration's characterization of Portland's unrest was simply untethered to the facts. The Ninth Circuit's decision faced a powerful dissent from Judge Susan Graber. She argued the order lacked no legal or factual justification, describing the government's portrayal of Portland as a war zone as absurd, even noting the presence of protesters wearing inflatable frog costumes. Graber warned that the majority's decision severely erodes core constitutional principles, including the state's control over their own militias and the public's First Amendment rights to assembly. Rayfield echoed this concern, stating that if the decision is allowed to stand, the president would acquire unilateral power to put Oregon soldiers on our streets with almost no justification, setting the nation on a dangerous path. And while the legal battle over Portland continues, the regime has pivoted its focus now to San Francisco, with Trump explicitly renewing his vow to send troops there as well. During a television interview, he claimed to have unquestioned power to order such a deployment, specifically invoking the Insurrection Act. This rarely used federal law grants the president authority to deploy military forces domestically to suppress rebellion or quash domestic uprisings, enabling troops to participate in law enforcement activities such as searches and arrests, things they are simply not trained for. Trump's threat against San Francisco was immediately preceded by public commentary from prominent tech billionaires, including Elon Musk and David Sacks, who vocalized support for a deployment. Mark Benioff, the Salesforce CEO, initially suggested troops could assist with policing duties before quickly retracting his statement and apologizing after facing significant public criticism. And the public criticism has extended to the largest public gathering of peaceful protest in American political history. We saw over 8 million people right across the country protesting exactly this: political overreach, judicial overreach, and the corruption of the Trump regime. And here we are. It's Monday. The protest is a couple of days behind us, and now we see this. San Francisco's local leadership has remained unified in their opposition to any federal military intervention, citing consistent improvements in public safety there. The mayor and other city officials have pointed to falling crime rates, with the city's homicide rate expected to hit its lowest level since 1954. And it was the same in Washington, D.C., when Trump federalized the military there too. State Senator Scott Wiener firmly rejected the idea also, stating that San Franciscans don't want him to send his personal army to occupy and invade the city, framing the threat as politically motivated due to the city's progressive values. The potential San Francisco deployment would face immediate legal challenges, particularly given a September ruling in the Los Angeles case where a federal judge found the previous deployment of military accompaniment for immigration enforcement operations violated federal law, further complicating the regime's expansive claims of executive authority. The legal and political conflict over the appropriate use of military power within U.S. cities remains highly contested and unresolved. At the heart of this conflict lies the Insurrection Act's relationship with the Posse Comitatus Act, the PCA, a federal law that generally prohibits the use of federal military forces for domestic law enforcement. By invoking the Insurrection Act, a president effectively utilizes the primary statutory exception to the PCA, therefore unlocking the military's capacity to engage in civilian policing activities like searches and arrests. Critics argue that the Insurrection Act grants the executive an alarming degree of discretion, especially since the landmark 1827 Supreme Court ruling affirmed that the president alone holds the authority to determine when domestic conditions warrant its use, severely limiting judicial or congressional checks. This concentration of power, the unilateral ability to militarize domestic law enforcement over the objections of states and without meaningful external review, represents a fundamental danger to the constitutional order, setting a perilous precedent that risks transforming the armed forces from defenders of the nation into an executive tool for quelling political dissent. This is the authoritarian dictatorship that Donald Trump claimed might happen on day one, just for a day. And here we are now, midway through October. And what we see now is the full extent of Trump's autocracy. This dictatorship is not winding down. If anything, it is ramping up. And it is essential that people take very seriously the direction in which Donald Trump is seeking to take the country. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with MeidasTouch.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.